Okay, guys, so we are live, and I am sure that I know today's conversation and topic is like one that has been really, really requested because every house is now a school, every parent is a teacher, and COVID-19 has literally, like, transformed our lives, and now parents are playing multiple roles, and with school shuts and there's literally like no boundaries between the bedroom and classroom, the lines are looking so blurred, and literally the routines have gone haywire. And India has nearly 300 million kids in 1.4 million schools across and 51,000 colleges, while 70% of the schools are run by government bodies, and higher education is also into play. 42% parents actually said in a research done by Gallup Media that said parents worry about COVID 19 effects and impact on their children. And as a parent, this is a burning thought in my head as well. And I said, there has to be somebody who can put our anxieties to rest, somebody who's set up, I don't know how many schools now, both preschools and secondary schools, primary schools. She's also part of ACE. She's also vice president of the EC, early childhood education. She's also part of APER, and she's also been a dear friend and like literally my sounding board on everything education. So I want to welcome Fatima Agarkar. Fatima, thank you so much for being part of this panel, and kind of sharing and putting our anxieties to rest and sharing the right sort of information with parents. So welcome, Fatima.
Thank you so much, Mansi. And I have to say, like you rightly pointed out, we've had this conversation. We said we've got to get it out. And I think It's Stop Press keeps information relevant, keeps important information at the forefront. And I've had lots of parents write in, and we discussed this, Mansi. This couldn't have been a better platform. Like you rightly pointed out, there are lots of issues, and I still don that educators hat. So lots of pressure, I must say, in this conversation today, but let's have some fun and let's see what we can do together to get our nerves to calm down.
Right. And for everyone who's watching, if you are an educator, you should be watching this. If you're a parent, you should be watching this. If you are part of management who's running large educational institutions, you should be watching it. If you're in the government, you should be watching this, because we are all, it's not something that one person can do in isolation. It is going to be a team effort for all of us put together, because we all can still manage. And if we are finding it hard to cope, imagine the little children, right? Imagine children who are for a few little ones who don't even get the gravity of the virus, and for the older ones who get it but still have multiple other things that they are dealing with, right? So guys, please keep sending in your questions. We'll try and we're live on YouTube, and for everybody, please keep sending in your questions, because at least we know that we've addressed a whole bunch of them. For everybody who wrote to us earlier, we have your questions right here. What I would appreciate is just keep sending them so we know that we're doing a good job. Okay, now first up, Fatima, should we be worried? Is it even worth it at this point in time? What do you see? What's the buzz in the education space? How long are the kids going to be home?
So I'm going to say the history may not be smiling because these are sensitive times, but honestly, they want to tell us, quite frankly, history repeats itself. This happened over 100 years ago. Did we learn? I dare say not. And it's the entire ecosystem. I think educators, and I stand by my industry, have been caught in the middle of the pitch. We're all missing our IPL, of course. We were caught out. Mansi, and the buzz in the education space is, quite frankly, I did an article with Times of India. Vinamrita wrote an interesting article in Times of India today. And honestly, the honeymoon euphoria about online learning is included. simply because I think a lot of people rushed into it. I don't know. It was the parental pressure of getting something to occupy their children at home that forced managements to react. I think a lot of people just rushed into it because someone else was doing it, not assessing their own capabilities. And I think that happened too quickly. Then they realized that there were more problems. The education space is now a lot more calmer. 3 weeks of being in lockdown has got people to analyze and reassess. They've figured out their capabilities. They're also now finally listening to what parents have to say. Honestly, Mansi, the teachers.
Yeah.
Because it's everyone. Nobody is in their comfort zone. Everyone's dealing with the frustration. And when the Prime Minister did announce an extended lockdown, I think the mental state of adults just seemed to be, the air was just sucked out.
Yeah.
Parents were just thinking, oh my Lord, I have these children now for more time. We can't deal with it. So I think everyone has recognized there's a problem. So I'm not going to get into it. The education space is actually in a better space now, Mansi. 3 weeks have done well. I think we've reacted a little quick. Companies, managements are figuring it out. We may not be jumping into the online bandwagon as we were. We're going to pace ourselves. Some sensible schools have already declared holidays. They say, let us do a lot of work offline before we can hit the virtual learning with the children. So Mansi, I think we're all going to have to come. In the history of anyone telling you to calm down, nobody calms down. But I'm hoping that this conversation gets people to recognize that enough work is being done and there are solutions.
Right. Now, I agree with you that a lot of schools were ready. I think that period between the 13th of March to the 22nd of March, before Maharashtra and all of, before the Prime Minister actually announced a complete lockdown of the country, I think a lot of schools were already ready because they were coming into change of term and they were kind of already. So I think that gave us a little bit of a leeway into understanding, okay, how are we going to progress into this, right? Now, of the different systems that you've actually seen, which one seems to be a sustainable one? Because, we know that some schools have developed enterprise solutions. Some schools are relying on on other kind of solutions which are not in a very secure environment. I mean, we're reading newspaper articles every single day that, XYZ platform is not a secure platform. Children should not be using it. NYC schools have already kind of banned onto some platforms. So what would you say are sustainable, safe environments for our children to learn?
So Mansi, it's not so simple, especially for a country like ours, where we have a large percentage of our children in government schools. Of course, we have the 1% that are in affluent neighborhoods in the cities. So the sustainable model, Mansi, which a lot of global schools are doing, and I mean private and public, in America or in the UK, is looking at curated content that is available offline, so creating flexible learning strategies for children, where basically you're not sitting in your uniform from 8 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon and listening to teachers come in and teach you live. They're moving into more flexible routines. Here's the content for a week. Assessments. These are assignments to do if you're going to flip it around. We're going to get you to watch a lot of this content and come back and have discussions with us in these live sessions where you address your problem. I think for the longest time, educators talked about flipped classroom. We never did. It's true. Maybe 1% of our population did it as a community, but we didn't really implement it. This is a great time. So I think the progressive schools have done this really well. Having said that, Mansi, I must correct you. I was with online. I work with a lot of schools pan India, 30 cities in the country, and I know that while school still had the physical format ready. Lesson plans were done, but they were struggling to go online. And some of these platforms that you talk about are not safe. I think we have to recognize that the bombing of these platforms is coming with a lot of media anxiety being created. If you actually speak to cyber experts, including the Ministry of Affairs, and the government has done a great job by protocols for all of us, whether in business or in schools, to say, Guys, these are secure platforms. They have security protocols. You just didn't follow it.
Yeah.
So I think let's not jump into the bombing of these platforms. Those who use ERPs, where it's not cloud-based or third-party, where your data is available to everyone else, using it. Not everybody has that luxury, Mansi. This does come at a price, right? So you're going to have to look at something affordable. I'm going to say, guys, as parents as well, please don't panic. When documents, there are 20 pages of it, read through the end. Because the end tells you the solutions. You're only looking at some of the data there, which scares you. Nobody is getting into your phones and eating your data and using it to sell it to a third party. I read some report about it being sold for 25 pence or something like that. Guys, please understand, these are very, very secure ones. And stuff can be used. Get your facts clarified. We often jump into a WhatsApp forward without even authenticating its source.
Right. Also, just to add in here, if we were to break this up into age-wise learning process, right? So do we need, if I was to say under 5 years, do they need online classes or, whatever online sessions that they're having? If it's between 5 to 10, which is essentially your primary school, do they need, how many hours typically should they be online, and what should a progressive school do? And of course, grade 5 onwards, once they're in secondary school, then what should their day look like? So if you can break that up for me.
Okay, Mansi, that's brilliant, because I think it has to be age appropriate. I think the one disruption that COVID-19 has done for all of us to recognize that when we talk about customization and personalization, it's now specific to an age group. Mansi, I'm just going to clarify, the National Education Policy is also, that's going to be tabled very shortly, talks about early childhood education year 2. So it's nursery, junior, senior, grade 1, grade 2, because these are little children. Anyone under 6 and should be, categorized as early childhood education under that umbrella. And therefore, do not require online learning. Early childhood education talks about literacy, it talks about numeracy, it talks about life skills. Emotional security is the centerpiece, social emotional security. They don't need to be online all the time. In fact, you're protecting them from the screen time. A lot of childhood educators are doing is focusing, therefore, on reading, listening, bilingual, picking up those skills. This does not have to be online. And I urge educators listening to this to say, do not get the kids glued on the machines. The primary years, Mansi, the semi-business end of the year kind of kids, where there has to be some scaffolding to their learning. The worry is if it's not repetitive enough, or it's not important, it becomes a little difficult. They will need contact time with their teachers, simply because it's evident that parents cannot play that role. Parents are not able to be that teacher to their children, so they will need some contact time, more mentoring from their teachers to understand concepts, Mansi. So I will say there has to be some amount of balance. I call it curation of content available and teachers responding to the children's. That the middle and the high schoolers have to be treated differently. They're more independent, they're more accountable, they're older, they can balance their screen time out. You can't have 8 hours of online learning for anyone in the middle or high school. That's just not normal. Those routines will have to be about 4 hours, content that's curated again with flexible routine. So Mansi, it has to be very, very specific routine.
Right. Also, a lot of parents are concerned that if my child is not doing what they were doing in school, which is a lot of writing or using a lot of their fingers or hands, or literally doing all of that, will they regress? Will not meeting their friends and not having a lot of physical sort of in-person collaboration, will all of that actually make my child regress?
So Mansi, there are 2 different questions, and I'm going to answer the first one about academic milestones. Okay, we're a nation, and I dare say it's not only us in India, but I think the global community is one as well. Everyone's worried about these benchmarks. how did my child do? Grade 2, what is the, how did my child do as standard class result? We're fixated about reading, writing, math scores, all of that to a point of being, unreal in these COVID-19 times. I think as educators, we recognize possible for children learning. We're aware that we may have to restructure some of this content in a manner that we can revise and revisit. When you're in early childhood education or in primary school, Mansi, it's not life-threatening. They're not going to Mars. They don't learn their quadratic equations by grade 4. They're not going to miss a mark. They learn it in grade 5. Guys, recognize that everyone is aware of what's happening. So I think this is very important for parents to understand that the baggage we carry on, because we were a content-driven generation, we may have to rethink not only this year, Mansi. America has already predicted in their state schools and something in fall. There's going to be another lockdown. So what? Every time there's a lockdown, we're only worried about academic milestones. Maybe this year is about 5 things less that were difficult to teach, which can get pushed on to next year. Don't worry. I think even board examinations, in the history of the world, you could never imagine that a board examination would be canceled, but it is. So I think someone else is also sitting at the opposite side and taking a stock of it. If your child is in grade 9 and 10, I can understand you're worried. But at nursery,
those are the most anxious parents, right? So you have the.
So Mansi, you're the one who's going to.
Yeah, the early years and the 9th and 10th grader parents, right? They are like ones at extreme ends who are like most anxious.
Yeah, so please recognize that the educators recognize what's happening. We keep talking about life skills and we keep help you with the laundry, with cooking. I've had a mom, Mansi, very sweetly, she said, what rubbish are you telling me? When is she going to read and, write that beautiful composition by grade 1? So I understand the panic, but you also understand it is not happening online for various reasons. Can the child not do it at grade 2? Think about it.
No, absolutely. I, in fact, think that the kids are learning so many skills that they would have otherwise kind of not managed to do, right? So it would be, like example, I think this time has really taught kids a lot more empathy, right? Like they really, like my kids are running helter-skelter trying to figure out funds for 3 stray dogs that my building has adopted. Right now they're like, Mom, we're all trying to figure out how are we going to get food, but what about the dogs? How are they going to get food? They're seeing parents work so much harder, they're seeing grandparents work so much harder. So I think some of the other skills which I feel are going to be so much more relevant in the years to come, I think are just going are at an all-time high right now, right?
Mansi, so what you're talking about are employable skills.
Yeah.
This is what an HR head wants, right?
Yeah.
Decision making, Mansi, is the simple thing that your girls have told you. Yeah. That, the 3 stray dogs adopted, how are we going to sustain that? Where's the food going to come from? We're struggling to get food into our homes. So how will that happen? Again, that's called critical thinking. Yeah. That's called sequencing. Guys, these are all actually academic milestones that their children are meeting without someone. We recognize that educators are thinking about this and saying, we're going to assess this. Yeah. We're going to put this in now, the report card, because unless it's on the report card, nobody recognizes its importance. Cooking skills. I think everyone's out there to recognize that cooking is actually a math concept.
Yeah.
So while all this is fancy and we're discussing about it, I know the reality is but you know what, Fatima,
assessment ka kya hoga? That is going to be my next question to you, because you spoke about the elder kids and how they're going to be assessed, and obviously for the little ones it's more about reaching those milestones. But should we even be worried about assessments at all, or how are educators even looking at assessing children, not from a purely marks point of view, but even conceptually, that when they're teaching online, in a class of 30, are all the kids getting the concept? Forget forget the class tests that would actually happen. But what are the tools of assessment that educators should now be using?
So Mansi, actually, what we call what we call class management and classroom design, when we are looking at grouping kids to make sure everyone's learning level is being addressed, we use MI as a base. This is what an educator does when she's going into that classroom and teaching children with different abilities. Extremely difficult when it is online. But this is where teachers are now recognizing the need to customize. So it's very important for them to then have that one-on-one children. This may not be class learning, so they call advisory times, where they're connecting with groups that are more homogeneous in their needs and understanding, okay, this group needs more attention, but the other group is very good to do it independently. So let me move it on to the next level. So actually, Mansi, this might be a blessing in disguise. A little more effort on the teacher's part to connect a bit more in smaller groups, but I think this is a great learning opportunity. And Mansi, finally, IT comes into its play. Because what the teacher is able to do is record the session, recognize the responses, go over what those discussions were, and be able to say, hey, listen, when I did do that class test with them, which is or a discussion, or when they sent me the homework back, you know what? My 5 kids were simply daydreaming. So I need to revisit that, and I need to send them the video back so that they can catch up, which doesn't happen in the physical world, because when the class is over, I'm not doing that. So I think this is a blessing in disguise.
Okay. Next one we're talking about is culture and sports, right? Now I see, school was like, when I speak to my kids, like, what is it about school that you miss the most? And it's the feeling, they're like, I miss my friends. They just miss the playground, right? The foyer area, the jungle gym, the play area. That's memories of school, right? How does all of that impact? Like, I see my daughter doing different classes in yoga and PE and all of that through a device, but how will all of that? How do you basically get the culture in sports in just through a virtual screen? How do you do justice to it?
About these times are normal, and therefore the physical aspect of it is going to be missed. And I think, Mansi, that's really important. You mentioned empathy as well. I don't think we actually covered that point in detail. Finally, as parents, especially from who've given everything to their children, this is a time they've recognized that the children understand the need to now wait for something. Finally, that desire for them to get off their screens and want the physical world has happened. Maybe that's a good disruption. Having said that, I'm a sportsman's wife, my son's a sportsman. They feel like animals in a cage at the moment. My husband can't wait to get on the golf course, and he's trying to find ways how government should allow the sport. But Mansi, I know in the UK with BBC, they've had who this friend of mine, Jamana, actually told, overnight able to bring communities together by some sort of video that he's putting out every day at 9 o'clock in the morning, getting families, Mansi, for a change to work out together. It is indoor space, not a page. We do not have that, but so you cope. And this is a great coping mechanism. Mansi, I can't tell you how important this life skill is, because when we're out of our comfort zone, be it any nationality, we just don't know what to do. This is a child's opportunity to recognize, I don't have this, so my next best is this. If I don't have that, my next best is that. There are some buildings who are allowing people at least out of their doors, their apartments. There are buildings who are not. But you are not enjoying even that amount of fresh space. So I think you're going to make do with indoor. There are plenty of exercises, Mansi. There are staircases. There are in your gym mat. You don't need a 20,000 gym workout. You can't play a cricket match.
Yeah.
Likewise for badminton players and all, you substitute, Mansi. This is a great time to finding exercises. And I'll say that again. Ajit had a back spasm, and he's actually Googled online and found a physio who's given him an exercise, and you know what? he found a solution. And I'm a sportsman, right? So all of us as laymen can also find it. This is when your research skills come.
No, absolutely. I don't know if anybody's been following Roger Federer, but he started the whole challenge, right? Which is amazing. Like I've been trying to do it with my kids' racket, and it just took me back to childhood. Like, listen, hey, you keep the sport alive. It just doesn't change much.
Even golf, there are lots of challenges. I feel, and I think that's where you innovate. Auntie, finally, creativity. With getting out of the duplication phase, which we love as a country, we're thinking of the jokes around COVID-19 get me into splits. So there's so much out there that we can do. I think let's start focusing on all of that. Sorry, but parents are worried about the marks, so we'll come back to that.
Okay. The next one is parents are only worried about the screen time and how much is justified. Again, if you want to break it down by age, I think it'll be a better, better benchmark for each parent.
So anyone who's under, year 6, which basically means under grade 2, ideal screen time in these trying conditions would be about 3 hours. Rule is that for every 20 minutes that the child is on screen, just have an off-screen rule. You look it up. Online teaching can be reduced for early, school goers. Is just going to help them, engage them in a lot more activities. And Mansi, there's plenty available for the parent to see and just give instructions to the children. I find 3, 4, 5-year-olds a lot more disciplined than the middle school because they follow the rules. So use that to our advantage before they start having opinions by primary and middle school. So use that. So ideally, 3 hours for under 6. When it comes to primary, those with online learning and Mansi, whether it's national or international, there's no way out. There will be a lot of screen time with work. What I have found, and I've done a quick statistic, quick research, where children have written back to me and saying, you know what, we want a break from the screen.
Yeah.
So, they're actually going and finding books that were dumped very, very far back in their closets. I see you have a large collection. But they're coming back. I think they're fed up of that. So when they're fed up, they're also finding alternatives without you actually having to do that. This is those, those children who are still in that happy space. And then there are those who are coping. There are children who are not coping with the lockdown at all. I will not label them, even who just generally have a lot more energy. These are not slow learners. These are, I prefer to call them just children with a lot more energy. Moms will have to work harder to make their moving activities from time to time. They may need a little more screen time to engage with their friends, etc. So about 4.5 hours is reasonable for primary. For middle school and above, Auntie, there's no way out. I think the screen time is about 5 hours. But if you can break that up and if they have some physical activity, have conversations with them, get them to do some household, which I think you can manage. Honestly, get the kids to sleep a lot more. And Mansi, this has been a big pain point. Indian children just don't sleep enough.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
24 hours, under 6 years, 12 to 14 hours. On an average, Indian kids are sleeping 8 hours. So let's go back to healthy sleeping habits. Yeah. Wow. They need 14 hours of sleep. It's just what science tells you, but we don't like science. It's the right. You want me to tell us how to get the vaccine going for us. So we're very territorial about what we want.
Yeah.
We need to recognize that primary kids, anyone in grade 3 up to grade 8, primary and school, they are 8 to 10 hours as well.
True.
The older ones, the senior citizens, 9th and 10th and 11th and 12th, they can get away with about 6 to 8 hours. But let's focus on sleep. Have this parent saying, Fatima, telling me to get the kid to sleep and eat and exercise. That's all problem. How do I make them ready for school?
Right.
They are ready for school.
Tell me, in all of this, Fatima, I like the fact that you mentioned, in your last response about there'll be some children who take a little more time. There'll be some children who take a little less time. There'll be slow learners, faster. What really happens to kids with special needs? What happens to children who, where one, the parents know that they have a special needs child. The other, where it goes unidentified, right? Or it's not identified yet. How do educators cope with that? How do parents cope with all of that right now?
So, Mansi, this is actually a big opportunity for those who are concerned about some of their children not responding as per what they think is, the norm in that particular age. And I worry when we label them with special needs without diagnosis. Mansi, psychometric evaluations are critical before we as laymen put a label, because that's where it all goes wrong. Mansi, there are lots of psychiatrists, psychologists, special educators, and counselors out there today online working with parents, working with children who have some sort of diagnosed challenge, and those who are at risk for. I suggest, instead of getting onto those apps and trying your way out, do consult with experts who today are available. And honestly, because they are in lockdown, they have more time to give you. How do parents cope with them? Mansi, not easy for these parents. I have to say this particular forum won't address it, but I do know a lot of mums who have children with special needs have got their go-to person. So what they call is a peer parent. So parents are consulting with other parents, getting onto the closed chat groups, using a lot of Zoom. Therapists are working with children would in a center and guiding parents with tools. So there's enough science out there. Just reach out to the right one. This cannot become a group discussion on a WhatsApp forum. This has to be addressed, and there's enough help out there. I think a lot of the aspect of it, where they can engage them in smaller activities, right food, right sleep, will help. But my heart does reach out to a lot of mums who have children with needs, because these are trying times for them, and that's why the family needs to rally and reach out to parents with similar who can become that support group.
Right. Also, when we're talking about being empathetic towards these parents, I really feel for all the teachers out there, right? Because it's also a lot of unlearning and learning for them, right? Because they're all trying these mechanisms, systems. They earlier could walk into class and draw on the board and write on the board and just talk about it, or say, okay, kids, open your book, and things would happen. Have to now work doubly hard, because they need to also prep to present, right? And also they're not spared from the household chores either. So what would you say to the teachers? Like, how can they really streamline their resources that they need to provide, and how can parents really be more empathetic towards teachers today?
Yeah, I think, Mansi, you've actually hit the nail on the head beautifully, because it is an ecosystem. You mentioned at the start of your conversation that each one needs to understand, have that empathy and tolerance. Teachers do not have it easy. They're trying to find their groceries. They're trying to run their houses. They are cleaning. House help is not available. And Mansi, please understand their point of view. They are now exposed live to all the parents. That means if I'm in a live group with my children and I'm tongue in cheek and I'm trying to be their friend, I know at the back of my mind I'm being watched by those parents who are making notes and writing it to my principal, and it's happened.
I can't believe that. I'm sorry for laughing.
It has happened, and I have been told.
Recording to supplement every class, right? So now there's proof. You're leaving like a.
I know. So I mean, spare a thought for these teachers who are putting out a lot. While a lot of them were ready with the physical content, Mansi, it is true. Zoom is a platform that a lot of them are using, and some of the other, like Google Meet, Microsoft has Teams, etc. But Mansi, when you have to share screens, sometimes there's a glitch, the connection falls. Then she's got to talk to them, and she wants to show up. And to explain a COVID-19 graph, by the way, a non-linear equation for a child who has no idea what linear is, so forget non-linear, when the screen has frozen. So these are practical. But in that, I think they feel they are under scrutiny. Like one teacher said, I have a slight accent. they're going to come back and tell the management that, this is not what we expected. We paid fees for a particular profile. I think we just have to get out of all of that, Mansi, and it's happening. It's not happening in just the affluent. I'm talking about everyone. So, guys, please be empathetic. These teachers are trying. Like I said, COVID-19 told us one thing: none of us were prepared. Top CEOs, governments, practitioners, basically nobody. Mansi, I'm a mom. My son is a very paranoid soul. In January, he's telling me, I'm feeling my throat is locking up. I have a cold. Do you think it's corona? And I looked at him and said, just happens doesn't mean it's going to happen to you. Mansi, I feel so foolish. 3 months later, I actually said it's happened in China. Please don't start getting paranoid. But look what happened in 3 months.
Right.
So I think none of us knew what we were doing. So parents, be teachers, communicate your challenges. It's okay to say, guys, the screen is locked down. We session. Why don't we, start the class again? Managements need to support teachers. I think everybody's going to have to be a little more tolerant, open-minded about how we're going to approach it, and it's going to have to be partnership, Mansi. It's not going to be easy for teachers. What I can suggest to them is don't try to do it all on your own. I think there are very progressive schools out there who've opened their doors. I know it was very heartening for me to see the American School of Mumbai, who, by the way, were like the Wimbledon, who are always predicting what's happening. Wimbledon ensured itself. Probably we should be like them, but we didn't, right? So schools like them, and I think there are many, many examples in the country. I've only given one. They open their doors to say, we have curated content. We have it, skill-wise, concept-wise already in place. Would you like to access? Because there are enough groups, there are enough forums, there are enough free webinars at the moment. Avail of them. Don't create everything. When you're struggling, reach out. And Mansi, this is the beauty of COVID-19. Got us to share a lot more, which we weren't doing in the education space.
I'm just going to say that the way people have really, with open arms, been generous enough. And, just the other day we were doing, a talk with Devdutt Patnaik, and he said there's one thing which people have really learned. He pointed out the same thing is generosity. Power is futile right now because it doesn't, the virus doesn't distinguish between two people, and power, you feel powerless. But if you've been generous, you'll definitely feel like, you've been powerful in empowering somebody else right now, right? So I think it's a classic example. Fatima, what I would really request is, guys, what we'll try and do is we'll put down these links as comments down below, and we'll get these resources from Fatima. So for teachers and educators who are trying to access, I think it's a very valid point that please reach out. I think she's made a very fair point. If there are resources available, why, duplicate, right? And if there are enough chats, webinars, forums, perhaps she can share them as links.
Yes.
We'll put them down in the comments below. So it just becomes much easier for you.
So, talking about life skills and for teachers, I think parents, the educators need to recognize that a lot of these e-resources are not worksheets, are not CBSE ebooks, or they're not linked to your syllabus. Okay, there are beautiful NASA websites, museums, like you can actually get into the Smithsonian Museum in the United States and get into the National History Museum. You can actually log on to a live stuff taking you daily. So it's all available, but that we don't want to do. Because we're still very mark oriented, and I think today should get us to all recognize that our children will be fine, perhaps more knowledgeable when they get to school, not regress.
Right.
When they get to school, and that's a big difference.
Right. Padma mentioned about the museums. I think, guys, a great resource is also the Google Art and Culture Project, right? It's an app that you can download, and you can visit any cultural or art museum worldwide, right? Now, I think what I think is a very valid point that you pointed out, that even if it's what we're looking is only for the academic and mark-oriented thing, right? The assessment part of it, but everything is not that. And I think just because it's free, I think we perhaps don't value it enough. That brings me to my next question, Padma. In terms of edtech companies and the kind of disruption that education is now going to see, what do you think about that? Which are the edtech companies that have really, are doing well? Where do you see the innovation in edtech?
Yeah. So Mansi, I think security of information, a lot of the schools would want to curate it as per their demographics, which is also important. So it can't just become an open platform for everyone. It's customizable. So a lot of the edtech companies today are trying to make sure platforms provide security, but also integratable with some of the other products. So you're seeing a lot of collaboration. Maybe I'm using Google Classroom, but maybe the inventory is a separate package and it's sitting on. The edtech companies are working like educators more collaboratively to say we're going to have to merge this. And for once, I think coming up with solutions for managements and principals to understand easily. I think there's a lot of breakdown right now. Mansi, the best part is a lot of them have gone back to the drawing board and made it simpler for principals to roll out, which had been just out there. Principals don't know, they're not tech guys, so they didn't know which product to choose. There's a lot more investment in now. And my biggest thing out of this is that finally all the stakeholders are talking to each other. So before I'm developing a product to say I need to now create virtual learning as an option, they're listening to parents, they're listening to students, and they're listening to managements. Eventually are just people who pay the money. It's the teachers, the students, and the parents will have to get used to this. So there's a lot more, easily implemented products that are going to be out there. Some of them, Mansi, are brilliant, like this guy, which is introducing School Wizard, the life skills that we talked about. It's a Canadian company that's on market, actually going to understand how a child learns. Mansi, how a child is approaching a task. So there are series of questions, not about academics. I may not like math. So what is my fear? What am I going through when I'm approaching math? Tracking that down, this is what I call data collection, and then helping the child with the right person to mentor. So now, if that's the innovation in the edtech place, and Mansi, there are few progressive schools that are doing it as part of their mainstay. This is not available to it because there's a price involved. But if the edtech is doing that, this is, I think, the best thing that can come out of COVID-19. The innovations that will make us easier, help us track these kids' learning, Mansi, their attitude, and help to rectify it so that
right. Also, from disruption's perspective, do you think that the emphasis that we earlier had that, schools, universities, college, foreign education, everything's like important and people like our parameters of how we chose education will definitely change now? Will e-learning be the new normal?
So Mansi, our mindset as a race, as a country, as a community may just continue. I don't think that's changing. I don't think overnight we're going to say, no grades, no boards. I'm going to be happy with my child's learning story. That's not happening. But yes, I think what we're going to strictly see is recognition that apart from my academic goals, sport is important, creativity is important, all of this is also important. What's going to also happen is that schools are going to rethink the content. Mansi, that's already happened. So when we were pushing out 40 things to be taught, we're now saying, no, we're going to stick to 20 because this 20 is non-negotiable for what I have to teach the next year. But the remaining was just published in some book. Yeah. And Mansi, this is now a top-down decision. I'm very impressed with CBSE because they've already come up with something what they call alternative learning. So bunch of people have already got together and given schools a nice framework to say, guys, these are the core subjects, focus on this. I think we're going to see mental health as a big subject now. We're going to focus on that child's emotional security.
Right.
Mansi, we're only talking about us. The kids are going to come out of this scarred.
Yeah.
They are. First of all, they've heard many conversations at home.
True.
Necessarily be curated content.
Yeah.
So I think schools are going to have to manage that bit before we actually get into the physical world. But Mansi, whether it's now, I'm not seeing schools open before June. I don't see for that, at least in some parts of our country. We do have our challenges. And I think health comes first. And Mansi, the statistics remind us every single day it's under 6 and above 60. So we have to be careful. We have to be careful in the physical world. Mansi, this is going to happen. Yeah. SARS happened 22 years ago. We didn't take risks, learned nothing. It's well, this is kind of a strand, and it's hit us without any preparation. We're going to find science actually attacking us in the next 6 months again. So parents accept that there will be blended learning. There will be a combination of physical world and online world. And Mansi, what's going to happen is one thing for certain, I think everyone's going to start talking to each other. Schools who had put up their barriers and were not talking and just pushing out notifications are going to recognize that they have to take the parents into confidence, talk to them, orient them, tell them what their problems are. Parents are going to talk a lot more to schools and say what their problems are, teachers and children. I think there's going to be a ecosystem where communication, 21st century learning, 3-4 C's that we have. Yeah. Communication is going to hold us together.
Right. California, the kids are going to come out of this much stronger, and they need a lot of emotional cushioning at this point. Padma, are educators today prepared to speak to children to help them cope better? Are schools prepared to say that, listen, my counselors are on the front line for your children?
Yeah. Mansi, you must actually appreciate that a lot of schools have already started this.
Yeah.
And simply because if I'm going through this as an individual, I'm guessing a parent is, my child definitely at home is going through that. Schools have begun this, and Mansi, it's not restricted to a particular elite class. It's across the board. In fact, I find government schools doing a lot more because they realized that it was them who was actually teaching. And they were the emotional bond for the children.
Right.
Is it enough? No, Mansi, it's not. So the start has been good. I think we need to collaborate a lot more. This is where high-level discussions are happening, and I know state governments are getting involved. So education minister out there saying, let's meet, let's understand. Mansi, it's going to have to be that emotional quotient and a lot more help, and that tech plays a big role as well.
Right.
Getting groups together to have forums and have solutions ready for them. So that's a big one that we will see going forward.
Right. Fatima, what we spoke of, tell me if it is only applicable to the top 1 percentile, or do you think it's trickling all through government education, rural education, government schools, rural schools? You think are you seeing a trickling effect, or it's just the top 1 percentile whose kids are actually doing e-learning? And are we really the privileged lot?
So Mansi, statistics will tell you that a large percentage of our population in our school are, state schools and then the national board curriculum. And I think that statistic is much more than, it's about 75%, right? I will say the national board schools have started gearing up. Like I said, they've already come up. CBSE, I'm very impressed, has already come up with a framework. And Mansi, they're using simple things like you can use WhatsApp, you can use Insta, you can use Facebook, you can more. These are all tools that are devoid of your enterprise software, devoid of some cloud. This is available. Even your phone will be able to cope with the push out that is available. So they're already thinking that. They're doing it. I am still concerned about the rural schools. That may not be a trickle-down effect, but I know a lot of edtech companies, as part of their CSR, are saying, looking at schools and doing this, and we're going to take on so many rural schools as well. Mansi, it's still not there in totality. But I think by and large, I think COVID-19 has no a bias towards race, money, and all the same level playing field. And I'm seeing enough in national schools, and I'm seeing, of course, a lot more in that 1 percentile that you've spoken, and some of them have really thought through and got it right.
Right. Now this brings me to one part of we've covered the educators, we've covered the children, we've covered the schools, the parent, right? Because Padma, and you're a parent as well, and I'm a parent. We're both working women. We're parents. We're running our businesses, and we're doing housework. Where does the
and handling the husbands?
Yeah, and handling the husband. No, they've been supportive, I must say, and I'm sure Ajit is extremely helpful as well. But how do you figure out your mental sanity? What is expected of parents? I know, like some, when we ask for questions, some parents say, I want to be involved with the schools, right? And I want to know what's happening, and I want to know this. Like, should parents be involved? Like, how much involvement is too much involvement? Really, where's it that they should step in? And really, how does a parent keep sanity? Because the child has already done 5 hours of online schooling, then you're doing 2 hours of extended homework. The child is coming back to the mother saying, listen, help me with this. And the mother's already struggling to complete 25 other tasks on her list. So how do you literally humanize this parent, right?
So how do you stay normal in these extraordinary times? Well, I don't think I have a magic formula for this, but keeping the sanity in place, I think, Nancy, you have to recognize that each day is going to be different. There are times where you are going to freak out. There are times where that volume will go up, and therefore just recognize you're not a human. You're not the superhero. Let's reserve that for people who are protecting us at the moment. Just accept that. Just accept that, I've had a bad day. I think just recognize that you are not in any competition. There is no super mom award. Right. At the end of the day, sort of super dad award. And guys, stop looking at Facebook or Insta. If you're only looking at pictures where this mom has perfectly baked a cake, I can't. or posting something on Insta, will you find me, about some work that I've achieved or done. Stop looking at those. You are, the captain of your ship. You have your variables. You know what you can do, cannot do, and you are not. No one's winning an award. That I can guarantee you. You're not going to look bad if you don't post those pictures. So please, pressure. I think it'll help to have a routine set. Give yourself flexibility. Conversations with your children where you set up essential agreements. Sit with them, and I keep saying 3, 4, 5-year-olds also can have the talk with you. Middle school can. It's more negotiation with the middle schoolers. I have a 14-year-old. If he wants to wake up at 10 o'clock, I am not going to cry just because my child doesn't wake up at 6:30 and is there smiling. My child wakes up with a grumpy face. Oh, gosh, it's morning. It's night. I've just recognized that and I've dealt with it. So I'm not excited when parents are static. So my son finished this, my son finished that. Mine hasn't even started. But I recognize that I go through and I want him emotionally happy. So I think that is going to be critical, Mansi, where we're going to just decide what works for us.
Yeah.
Also, Mansi, if the screen time extends for an hour, it is okay.
Yeah.
If it extends for 2 hours on that day, it is okay. And I keep saying this, a lot of the gadgets that we use today do have anti-glare, anti-screen. So I think we're better off than we were. Hence, it's not, I'm not saying it's ideal to be on screen. But Mansi, the kids also need to engage with their friends.
Yeah.
You guys are on house calls and Zooms and chilling and having those parties and all of that, or meeting for dinner. They also need to. After their work gets over, they may want to, and I think that's fancy. I think recognize some rules, have some routines in place, have some rewards in place, have conversations about, why don't you show them video about the detrimental effect of being on screen too much?
Yeah.
Why don't you show them videos that talk about, what's happening to your body if you don't get enough rest or sleep, etc. Talk to them like adults, Mansi.
Absolutely. I kind of so agree with you, Fatima. Like, I think every household needs to define their normal and what are their non-negotiables, right? So if waking up early and, having dinner, lunch, breakfast with the family, I think it's the best time. Like, the kids and me and my family have just been bonding over food and just finally having 3 meals a day together. We're really privileged, right? These times are never going to come back.
Never going to come back.
Yeah, so I feel like if you define what is the normal in your house, like we always say, on Kids Shoppers, do not compare your mom to the mom across the screen, because your normal and her normal is very, very different. Right? So that, and also define what is a non-negotiable for you. So value systems, right? If like, and even share things that tick you off. Like when I'm doing the dishes and somebody just comes and dumps everything, it ticks me off. And I say, guys, please don't do that, because that upsets me. And they've understood that. They just keep it on the side. So if there's something that even upsets you, just be vocal and communicate about that, right?
And communicate. Mansi, we tend to keep it to ourselves because you want to be that perfect person. Yeah. You want to do it all, and then you're getting irritated. You are getting irritated. You can actually see the smoke coming out of your own ears, but you will not admit to it because you want to look good in everyone else's eyes. Guys, this is not the time to look good.
Yeah.
And recognize that you need help. Ask someone, assign, delegate. If you have house help at home, give them a break as well. Get them to. Just keep it together. Keep it normal if you can. But Mansi, communication. I think whether it's educators, whether it's adults, I think we just need to communicate as normally as possible and say, listen, I'm having a bad day.
Yeah. I think that's very, very important. Fatima, before we end, I just want you to sum up the real five impacts of online schooling, and really what are the key takeaways from this conversation, right? From everything that we've discussed, if you have to sum up this conversation, what would your top 5 takeaways be?
Right. So the most important one for me is about empathy, and it's about all the life skills. It's about recognizing that you can make do with a little bit. It's about our children learning that everything is not available and therefore they have to prioritize. It's about them doing stuff, taking decisions. It's about them getting bored and staring out of the window and not having the perfect day where every element of their body is being stimulated, mind, body, soul. It's about them also recognizing that they actually finally have their family and that family is safe. Unlike some of the other houses, my second takeaway, and a big one, and I keep saying that the risk sounding repetitive, is about communication. It's about schools communicating to parents, parents communicating to the schools. It's also, the third one would be largely empathy for each other. If someone's having a bad day and someone snapped at you when you asked a question, like Mansi mentioned, people have just dumped it and you're in the midst of doing something else. I think we just need to recognize that all of us have emotions and everyone's going through something. So that empathy of understanding a person's probably in that space and let that person be. Likewise for teachers who are trying their level best but may not be the best on that day. For the parent who was supposed to on the child's homework but hasn't been able to. So empathy is a big one for me. The last bit, Nancy, is a critical one because we spoke about sport in the physical world. I think you need to recognize that these are times to read a lot more. This is the time to actually take a few risks, Nancy. Whether it's us as adults, pick on a new skill. Before you try and put everything in your child and say, you do this. Now, Fatima said life skills. So go and show me how you're going to organize your room. That's not it, right? So I've taken this thing about technology because I was always dependent on someone else. And I've said, no, I'm going to figure this out. And I spend hours and hours when I'm so tempted to pick up the call and say, Bhushan, can you help me? But I'm saying, let me figure this out. I'll work it out. And I think if you do that and you give that example to your child, that happens as well. So I think skilling for everyone, teachers, adults, and children. Did I cover 5?
Yes. And I think I'm going to, I love the last one that you said, that we need to be constant learners because, I was attending a lecture by Yuval Noah Harari, and he said in his Penguin lecture that the only skill your kids and you need to learn and be prepared for 21st century is the art of constantly learning and upskilling yourself, right? Because by the time you've learned something, you've done a job for 2 years, maybe something new's coming and you're going to be displaced like in seconds, right? So the only way to survive is to constantly keep learning. So I love that you mentioned that we need to constantly ensure that we're growing. We're like I've been taking up online classes as well, and I just feel like this is the best time. And for everybody who feels like kahan fas gaye, like what has this happened, guys, that's one way of looking at it. But the other way of looking at it is this: what we're actually doing is we're actually shooting one day, like one person in the family, what they've done through the day, and we're like kind of shooting them in that moment. We're like, let's make this like a fun. At the end of the lockdown, we'll probably assemble all these video pieces together, and we'll see, like, this will be a memory of a lifetime, right? How we survived this.
Yeah, so skills, Mansi, photography, cooking. Like I said, I'm terrible. I can do everything on paper, but when I'm in that kitchen, I'm a disaster. But you got to do it, right? So and Raj is like, oh my God, do I have to eat that? But like I said, survival, right? You have to make do with what's available.
Absolutely.
But I think you have to challenge yourself for the little one to recognize that therefore there's an added responsibility and accountability. And Mansi, honestly, COVID-19 has actually taught us that. He was right when he mentioned be prepared for an uncertain future. Mansi, if we're not prepared for an uncertain future after this experience, God bless my great grandchildren, because they're going to look back and say, see, guys, we should have listened to them. So I'm saying we've got a skill, and I think we're 20 years behind. Anyway.
Right. So. No, incredible, Fatima. Thank you so much for doing this. And for everybody who's asked their questions, I feel like we've covered most of it, because Fatima and I made sure that we've discussed it at length. So it's very, very actionable for the parents, teachers, management, educators, everybody out there, right? So I really just want to say big thank you for taking out time from your schedule and making this so impactful for everybody listening.
Thank you so much, Mansi. And like you pointed out, I think they need takeaways from this. I think for teachers, let's curate those key links for them to access. Let them read forums where they will get answers, so it becomes easier for them. And maybe for parents as well, there are enough, private chat groups where they can discuss with experts on them, Mansi. I'm guessing you need to do this again with a few more educators. I think this topic is just the tip of the iceberg. This needs to constantly be refreshed.
Absolutely.
Days ago.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.